Connectra creates opportunities for people living with disabilities by providing information, resources, and programming geared towards greater inclusion and quality of life. Check out some of the programs we offer through our online learning platform, Connect Together, including our Service Mondays, where we highlight a local organization or initiative, Wednesday Chair Yoga with Bobby Seal-Kobiski, Thursday Adapted Fitness with Megan Williamson, Friday Rotating Dance Classes hosted by Janice Lawrence and Joanne Cuff, and other initiatives including presentations by the Disabled Independent Gardeners Association's Growable program and our Perspective series. Check out our updated programs calendar on our website, connectra.org, or find us on Facebook at Connectra Society.
Okay, you can start.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me here today. My name is Chelsea Tambellini. I am a staff member with Special Olympics BC. Our office is located in Burnaby, and my role focuses on the Lower Mainland, but we are a provincial-wide organization, so we have staff members throughout the province and programming throughout the province. So I'm just going to give a presentation today around what Special Olympics is all about, and if there are any questions, definitely reach out to me, and I'll provide my email and contact information at the end of this presentation. So what is SOBC? So we're a worldwide organization providing sport and training opportunities for people with intellectual disabilities. We're recognized by Sport Canada as the main provider of these services to people whose primary diagnosis is an intellectual disability. One of the questions that we get is if our athletes have physical disabilities. Yes, they are eligible through their intellectual disability. And then if they have a physical disability, in addition to an intellectual disability, they can still be a part of our programs. And then we modify as best as possible their physical disability or the needs they need for that. Our mission and vision for the organization is dedicated to enriching the lives of individuals with intellectual disabilities through sport. And our vision is sport will open the hearts and minds towards people with intellectual disabilities and create inclusive communities across all of British Columbia. What is an intellectual disability? So a lot of the time we have athletes or caregivers of future athletes come to us asking if they're eligible for Special Olympics or not. A lot of the time families are told by their physicians whether or not they have an intellectual disability. If they aren't sure whether they have an intellectual disability, there is a list of criteria we will send people to reference. But certain limitations in cognitive and functioning skills, including communication, social, and self-care skill are generally what fall under having an intellectual disability. And it can happen anytime before the age of 18 is how we define it as well. Eligible participants must have an intellectual disability, cognitive delay, or developmental disability in order to be eligible to participate and compete with Special Olympics BC. So the continued criteria that we might look further into are things like the IQ score, any limitations that they may have, and when the intellectual disability was diagnosed. A couple of facts about SOBC. So Special Olympics was founded by Eunice Kennedy Shriver in 1968. She started the organization as kind of like a summer camp type of thing in her backyard, I believe, because she had a sibling that had an intellectual disability and found that her sibling wasn't included in any of the things that the kids without intellectual disabilities were included in. So she started this movement. 1969, Harry Red Froster brought the Special Olympics movement to Canada. So that was originally in the States. And then June 9th, 1969, the very first Special Olympics national competition was held in Toronto. And then in 1980, Special Olympics BC was established. So prior to that, it was just Special Olympics Canada, and then Special Olympics BC was established in 1980. So we have celebrated every milestone since then. Today, we have 55 communities across BC. Prior to the pandemic, it was over 5,200 athletes and 43 volunteers. As many people are aware, the pandemic changed many things, so we're trying to bring those numbers back up again. But before then, we were growing every day, which is great to see, and we're even growing in communities as well, hoping to gain even more communities across BC in the near future. So these are the sport programs that we offer. In British Columbia, there are 18 different sports that are divided as summer and winter. So as you can see there, we have 10-pin bowling, track and field, basketball, bocce, golf, powerlifting, rhythmic gymnastics, soccer, softball, and swimming. Those are all considered summer sports. And then for winter sports, we have 5-pin bowling. So as you'll see, we have both 10-pin and 5-pin, and 5-pin is considered winter. Alpine skiing, cross-country skiing, curling, snowshoeing, speed skating, figure skating, and floor hockey. So of those sports, bocce is a sport that not a lot of people are familiar with. So that's played outdoors in a grassy area with 2 teams and a white ball. So kind of similar skills to bowling in that sport. Rhythmic gymnastics is the gymnastics with the ribbons and the hoops and the pins, doing a routine with those instruments. And then swimming is speed swimming, so lap swimming. And then for our winter sports, alpine skiing is downhill skiing. Cross-country skiing is kind of flat skiing on the ground. Curling is the sport on the ice where you have the rocks and you slide them to the other end of the ice. And then snowshoeing, speed skating, figure skating, and then floor hockey, we use a felt ring and a stick with a felt tip on the end. So it's not a stick with a blade and it's not a puck. We just find that it's a little bit safer and more comfortable to play with because they're softer materials used in that sport. So it's still full contact, but it's safer than a blade and a puck, we find. And then additionally, we have club fit and youth programs, which I'll go into more detail about what those are as well. But those are the 18 sports, summer, winter, and then I'll also speak to the competition cycle and when those sports are competed. So this is the current cycle that we're looking at now. It was kind of thrown off course due to the pandemic, but prior to then, in 2019, we had provincial games and those were in Vernon, and those were for winter sports. So the sports that you saw there were being competed. 2019 World Summer Games was in Abu Dhabi, and those were all of the summer sports that were being offered. We did have a number of athletes attend World Summer Games, but they do need to qualify through the competition cycle. So they need to start at the regional level, go to provincial, national, and then worlds in order to get to the world stage. In 2020, we did manage to have our National Winter Games in Thunder Bay, Ontario, right before the pandemic. It was early February that we did that. So as soon as we kind of landed back in BC was when everything shut down. And then in 2020, we were supposed to have our regional summer qualifiers, but those were canceled. So as you can see in 2019 were the summer games. So then it goes back down to the bottom of the cycle to start at regionals and then would work its way back up. But because it was canceled, that threw off a few things above it. So continuing on with the frustrations and cancellation, 2021, we're supposed to be provincial summer games after the regionals in the previous year, but those weren't able to run either. So we did what's called SOBC Challenge Games, which provided athletes the ability to compete and train online and in person when possible. And then in 2021, we're supposed to be the World Winter Games after the 2020 National Games in Thunder Bay. They were originally in Russia. Actually, they're originally in Sweden, and then Sweden wasn't able to fulfill their agreement with the World Games. So then it was moved to Russia, and then it has since been canceled in Russia for obvious reasons. So unfortunately, after 2 cancellations, it just ended up being in Ontario that everyone got together and had a chance to gather as Team Canada, which was great. And then jumping to 2022, this year we've had our regional winter qualifiers preparing athletes to go to the provincial games, which are going to be early 2023 next year. So we're trying to get back on track with competition. And then we are continuing into World Summer Games in Berlin. So we've had a few opportunities for athletes to qualify for those games despite the regional and provincial cancellations. But we do have a select amount of athletes going to Germany next year, and then a ton of athletes going to provincial games in Kamloops in February. So kind of running on an opposite schedule. This is a big question that we get. A lot of people think that Special Olympics is the Olympics or is an event that happens once a year, and that's not the case. We are ongoing sports programming. There's 4 different levels of competition. A lot of our athletes compete at the regional level and don't go higher than that, either because they just don't want to compete, or unfortunately they're not successful in moving forward, but we encourage them to keep trying. And the summer and winter streams, like I say, are on an opposite schedule. So there's always something happening at some time of year for the competition cycle. Club Fit was one of the programs that I mentioned we offer as kind of part of the 18 other sports that we offer. So it's a fitness program intended for ages 14 and up. We do have youth programs for those younger than 14, so I'll talk about what those means. But Club Fit's a general fitness program, and it's often a program that we ask any athletes that are part of the competition cycle to be a part of, just to maintain their overall fitness and wellness. And it can be for any athlete that wants to participate. Functional testing is kind of part of the Club Fit program, just in that we offer functional tests for muscular strength, endurance, power, mobility, flexibility, balance, stuff like that, in order for us to evaluate athletes at one start of the year, and then again at the end, just to see where that improvement has happened, and for coaches to kind of track that in the athletes to ensure that they're continually growing and improving in their sports. So our youth programs, there are 2, Active Start and Fundamentals. So Active Start is ages 2 to 5 or 6, and then the Fundamentals is ages 6 or so to 11. Once the athlete turns 8, they are able to join sport-specific programs, but we do encourage athletes to stay into Fundamentals as long as they can, because it is a great program to work on their development, motor skills, social skills, things like that. In Active Start, it is parent and family participation, and then in Fundamentals, parent participation isn't required, but it's still great for families to be involved in these programs as well. So it's also a great networking opportunity. We like to focus on youth just because of various studies that have gone on to talk about how development in any child is crucial at these ages, and things like motor skills and introduction to sport are super important when they're at these ages. So a recent Canadian study revealed that 26% of children aged 2 to 17 were overweight or obese. So that was something that we wanted to try and improve. Brain connections, rapid brain development are in the first few years of life. Evidence also exists that shows that children who participate in sport develop a higher self-esteem and are less likely to develop problems relating to stress, anxiety, and depression. So we kind of hit the ground running with their social skills and confidence right from the beginning. Currently, there are a few community programs aimed at children with intellectual disabilities, such as this Active Start and Fundamentals, and Sport for Life suggests that they stay involved for a lifetime. So we like to think that athletes that get involved as 2-year-olds in our programming remain in our programming until they are older. Special Olympics BC does not have an age restriction. So I think our oldest athlete is currently 92 in the province. So we definitely have athletes of all ages participating. So we hope that if they get involved as youth, they remain involved, and it's something they can do for their entire life. A little bit about Active Start. It's a program that focuses on the development of positive movement experience for athletes between the ages of 2 and 6 that have an intellectual disability, focusing on things like running, jumping, throwing, catching. A lot of the athletes in these programs are athletes with Down syndrome, just because that is the first intellectual disability that is visible at birth. But we definitely have young kids that are needing that type of program involved as well. It provides a fun and safe environment for young athletes to practice, enhance, and showcase their abilities. And it's an educational program to provide support to athletes and caregivers in the areas of physical fitness, nutrition, and networking. So we do like to talk about good food to eat, how to remain healthy at home, how to continue to be active when you're outside of the program. And then Fundamentals, similarly, it's a program that provides children with intellectual disabilities between 7 and 11 the opportunity to strengthen fundamental skills and develop basic sports skills in the sports of soccer, softball, athletics, and basketball. So hopefully once they've developed these skills or learn that they like a sport, they're then able to go into the sport-specific programming and be successful in those sports that we offer. This is the continuation of Active Start. However, athletes are not required to come from an Active Start in order to participate. So athletes are able to join Special Olympics at any age, even the youth, so they can bypass active start if they wanted to, join when they're 7 into fundamentals, or like I say, they can join when they're 40 years old into Special Olympics. So there's no age restriction there. The program Sport Start is another program kind of between fundamentals and sport specific, but it's only offered in a few different communities just because we find a lot of the athletes, once they're done fundamentals, they're able to go into the sports like soccer, track, softball, or basketball. Some of the benefits of all the youth programs that we find are improved physical and cognitive social skills of the athletes. And we've heard from the parents that they have developed these things from being a part of these programs, which is amazing. Improved fitness levels and basic motor skills. So it gets them running, gets them active. Opportunity for improvement in self-esteem and self-confidence, I believe, is a huge asset in all of the programs of all of the ages of our athletes, but especially when they're younger and needing that self-confidence around other people is really important. Chance to learn sport-specific skills in preparation for the transition to the organized sport. And it's also an introduction to the Special Olympics family, because as I said, if they join when they're younger and stay a part of it, they meet the coaches, they meet the staff, they meet the other athletes and the other athletes that stay within the programs for their life as well. So hopefully they're building strong connections there. A few caregiver benefits as well, because it's very important that they are also benefiting from these programs and a lot of the reason why they exist. These youth programs are a vehicle for networking with other families. So a lot of the time, this is families with kids that have intellectual disabilities first kind of exposure to other families that also have kids with intellectual disabilities. So that's really important for them to meet them, talk about similar challenges that they're going through, similar successes, stuff like that. Education in fitness and nutrition. So as mentioned, that's something that's talked about. Long-term child participation. So hopefully once their kid gets involved at a young age, they remain involved and always have a sport to go to. And then introduction to the SOBC resources and additional opportunities. So once they're involved in the organization, there's lots of opportunities that come up that they can be a part of. Special Olympics BC support. We are committed to providing strong youth programs in an effort to ensure all young persons with intellectual disabilities have a chance to participate in physical activity. Ensuring success, SOBC provides all of the equipment required for the program. So if we come across anybody who is wanting to get this started, we are able to work with them to make that happen. We look at community-based programs and school-based programs. So if anyone listening to this or wants to benefit from a program like this, know someone that works out of a school or someone who's interested in getting involved in the community, we can provide the equipment and the guide in order to make these programs happen. And the school-based programs sometimes happen within the school during school hours with the students in the school that kind of require this type of programming. So lots of possibilities there. We also provide things like t-shirts to children and the program leaders, the reference guide, including the lesson plan. So whoever runs the program is able to do so through this reference guide. The first year facility rentals up to $500. So if it does come to a community-based program, that shouldn't be a concern as far as getting that started. We do have leader education training. It's called Coaching Young Athletes, and it's through the NCCP stream, the National Coaching Certification Program, as well as staff support. So staff like myself supporting anyone who would like to start youth programs in the Lower Mainland. And then we also have a youth-focused staff as well to support in these areas. In addition to youth, high school sports are something that SOBC integrates into high schools. So in sports like 3-on-3 basketball or track and field or soccer, similarly to the school-based sports, these are things that we hope to get going in the school for any students that wish to utilize it in the school. Hopefully for students that often feel like they're excluded from the regular sport programming in their schools. We like to show everyone involved that Special Olympic athletes have just as much capabilities of playing sports as anybody else. So that is a good place to start that, and a good place to spread that awareness is within high schools, allowing them to thrive in school and not just outside of school. So that's another kind of program that we provide. If there's anyone interested in getting that going in a high school in their area, I'm the person to talk to for that. Health is a big important stream within Special Olympics as well. We have a health staff who's designated to these health initiatives. We have a few different activities and events focused on health and improving and monitoring the health of our athletes. We've learned that people with intellectual disabilities experience worse health care and access to services than others in their community. Unfortunately, there's a lot of kind of staggering results of people with intellectual disabilities not having as long of a life as many others, and unfortunately has nothing to do with their disability, but more so their lack of access to healthcare or lack of knowledge in health. So this is something that we strive to eliminate and make sure that we are doing everything we can to make sure that our athletes are as healthy as possible. Some of the health programs that we have are Club Fit, like I mentioned, that general fitness program. So it's not sport specific and purely so that athletes can have a healthy fitness program to do every week. There's a program called Fit Family and Friends that is normally done during the summer because we don't have a ton of programs happening in the summer months, as most of our programs kind of run from September to June. So we do like to have ongoing programming for athletes and their families in the summertime to ensure that they remain healthy and fit. And then our healthy athlete screening, I have more info on. This is for people with intellectual disabilities who experience worse healthcare and access to services than others in their communities. Special Olympics is addressing the range of barriers that affect the health of individuals with intellectual disabilities, which include the lack of access, education, and resources, as I mentioned. Special Olympics is changing the game for athletes in health. Our ultimate goal is to create a world where people with and without intellectual disabilities have the same opportunity to be healthy. So ultimately, we want everyone around us to be healthy, and we want to do what we can to make that happen. What healthy athlete screenings aim to do are partnering with organizations to provide medical equipment. So, for example, in 2014, items include 100,000 prescription glasses and over 2,000 hearing aids provided free of charge to Special Olympic athletes around the world. So when they took part in healthy athlete screening and physicians that were volunteering there determined that an athlete needed glasses or hearing aids or something, we were able to provide that to them. Changing healthy athlete systems. Also in 2014, Special Olympics has trained 120,000 healthcare professionals on how to work with people with intellectual disabilities. So this is often a barrier that healthcare professionals and our athletes have, in that our athletes shy away from doctors and physicians or medical professionals, as they don't know how to speak with them. And a lot of the time, our medical professionals don't know how to properly communicate with people with intellectual disabilities. So we like to try and eliminate that barrier, have our athletes feel confident going in, speaking to someone who they know understands that they have an intellectual disability and is able to work with them on that. After volunteering with Special Olympics healthy athletes, 84% of healthcare professionals felt better prepared to treat people with intellectual disabilities. So ultimately, we would love for all health professionals to be able to open their doors to anybody not dependent on their disability and provide them with the services that they need. Since 1997, SOBC has providing free, fun screenings and education for people with intellectual disabilities in the fields of fit feet, so focusing on their feet and their foot health, fun fitness, which is physical therapy, health promotion, which is just general better health and well-being, health hearing, so audiology, focusing on deaf patients or people with hearing impairments, Special Olympics Lion Club International opening eyes, so that's optometry, Special Smiles is dentistry, so dental hygiene, braces, cavities, things like that. And then Strong Minds is mental health and mental training. So through the Healthy Athletes, healthcare professionals receive training about the specific healthcare concerns of people with intellectual disabilities and how to ask the right questions, helping them draw out those issues. Their interactions with Special Olympics athletes lead and refer back to the healthcare system that ensure the individuals will get the treatment that they need. So ensuring that they don't just come to the program once and then they go home and they never see a person again. We make those connections and make sure that they feel like they have the ability to go and get this looked at again if they need to. Additional Health BC programs. The goal of Special Olympics is to ensure inclusive health for people with intellectual disabilities, meaning equitable access to quality healthcare, education, services throughout the community. So we have a ton of resources on the Special Olympics website. So there's the link there. But if you go to specialolympics.bc.ca, there's lots to see in regards to everything, but lots of health resources, things like cookbooks or cooking classes or different online virtual classes to talk about things like special smiles, dentistry, optometry, mental health, personal hygiene, stuff like that. So lots of different resources on there for anyone who would like to see it. Athlete leadership is another area of Special Olympics BC that I think is a really, really great system. It recognizes how important it is that leadership comes from within for people in general, but we like to see that our athletes are not only skilled on the playing field, but also as leaders in their community. So we like to offer different courses that allow athletes to learn and train in different areas such as public speaking, leadership, sitting on a committee, being a leader in their community, stuff like that. And they take these courses and then they're able to do them in the community. And then it kind of benefits us as a whole because they're able to do things like speak about Special Olympics and do presentations like I am today and discuss how Special Olympics is such a great organization and how we want more people involved. So some of the athlete leadership programs that we offer are Athlete Speakers Bureau level 1 and 2. So that's teaching athletes how to public speak, how to write a speech, how to memorize a speech, how to deliver a speech, how to arrange and go to a speech, and share some information about SOBC in different schools or communities or with community groups. Anti-bullying and harassment workshop. Unfortunately, within sport, bullying is something that does happen. So we like to offer this as a way to teach people what to do if they are being bullied, how to understand what bullying looks like, how to prevent being a bully yourself, how to not be a bystander, things like that. So that's offered virtually and in person. Athlete Input Council is a course for athletes that wish to sit on a council in a committee in a local and have the opportunity to speak their voice and provide their own thoughts and opinions towards how they think programming should be happening. So a really cool opportunity for them to sit and work together and make the organization a better place. Health Hero and Health Messenger is focusing on the things I was just talking about with health. So learning about those things themselves and kind of being advocates for health in their community. Athlete reporter training, a good opportunity for athletes to learn how to conduct interviews, how to ask athletes how their training is going in competition. We like to get athletes trained in this area when we're nearing a competition so they can interview the athletes that are about to compete leading up to it, and hopefully help to inspire other athletes to get out there as well. And lots more athlete leadership courses, but those are kind of the main few that we focus on. Volunteers hasn't been mentioned yet, but it should have been the first thing that we talked about in this presentation because we would not be anywhere without the volunteers. Special Olympics BC is a very heavily volunteer-based organization. They run everything. So all of our coaches, all of our program volunteers, all of our committee members, they are all people who dedicate their time voluntarily to deliver Special Olympic programming. So there's about only 20 or so staff members in all of BC, myself included, and arguably, like I say, before the pandemic, about over 4,000 volunteers. So now we're trying to get those numbers back up, get people re-involved, but like I say, we wouldn't be anywhere without them. So we rely on them to deliver and administer all aspects of SOBC programs. As I said, they act as coaches, assistant coaches, executive members, and or subcommittee members. So lots of opportunity to volunteer, and we're always looking for people to get involved. Local committees, as I mentioned, so there are 55 communities in BC. Each of those communities have a local committee that meets on a monthly basis to talk about the ongoings of the community that Special Olympics is in. So for example, where the office is in Burnaby has a local committee that meets monthly, talks about fundraising initiatives, how to onboard more athletes, onboard more volunteers, different sports that are going to be offered, if there's ever any incidents or things that need to be talked about. The Special Olympics shares fundraising opportunities with them. So we talk about provincial fundraising as well as local fundraising. There's athlete registration each year. So that needs to happen and it's done by the local committee. So lots of things for them to discuss every month. And it's normally a group of about 5 to 8 positions. And the committee is responsible for the program of finances and overall well-being of the Special Olympics programs in their community. So very, very important that they exist and they do a ton for the local, and they're what make the programs run. So they're an amazing group of people around the province. Some examples of locals in the Lower Mainland. So this is the area that I cover as the Community Development Coordinator for the Lower Mainland. So we're divided into 3 different regions here. So Region 3 consists of Chilliwack, Abbotsford, Mission, Ridge Meadows, which is Maple Ridge and Pitt Meadows, Langley, Surrey, and Coquitlam. And then we're also looking to develop into Hope as well in Agassiz. So that's exciting. Region 4 is Burnaby, Delta, and Richmond. So a smaller local, but it's kind of in between, in the middle of the Lower Mainland, in between everything else. And then Region 5 consists of Vancouver, North Shore, Sunshine Coast, so taking the ferry over to the coast, and then as far kind of north as Squamish and Whistler. So we do have programs running everywhere except for Squamish and Whistler. We often have ski programs there for obvious reasons, and we hope to develop some youth programs there as well, but that's one of the, or 2 of the locals that we're definitely working on developing. Everywhere else has every local has probably over 100 athletes at least in each of the locals, and some locals have close to 400, like Surrey, that's a larger local. Vancouver have close to 400 athletes. Coach development workshops are something that we offer to our volunteers in order for them to develop their skills in coaching these different programs. So they are coaches from all other levels of sports. So there are some who know the sports really well and want to get involved and learn even more, or there are some coaches who don't know the sport at all, but they just want to get involved and learn a little bit more. So anyone is welcome to join these. The goal of these are to empower and broadcast possible range of coaches and in turn all of their athletes. So teach the coaches kind of how to be the best coach possible, and then in turn they can bring these back to their programs and apply them to the programs and help the athletes become the best athletes possible. Athlete benefits of SOBC programs. So we talked about this in regards to youth, but this is equally as important in all of Special Olympics BC programs. And we like to think of it as more beneficial than just playing the sports. There are also these benefits that come as well. Improved physical and cognitive and social skills, opportunity for meaningful peer interactions, feeling a part of something bigger than themselves, being a part of the Special Olympics family, improved fitness levels and basic motor skills, and opportunities for improvement in self-esteem and self-confidence, which I think is huge. I think if you were to ask any athlete that's been involved with us for a couple of years, they can confidently say that they have improved in their self-esteem and self-confidence since starting in Special Olympics. So that's a really great thing, I think, that comes from being a part of this organization. Similarly to caregivers, so people that have members of their family with intellectual disabilities, we like to think that it's another opportunity for them to gain these things as well by having their individual or their loved one involved in Special Olympics. So it's a vehicle for them for networking with other families. Long-term child participation in sport. So as we mentioned, they can get involved at a young age and go for years and years, or they can get involved when they're a bit older and then have something to do for kind of the rest of their life, hopefully. Resources and support. So as I mentioned, the Special Olympics BC website has a ton of resources. The local committees in the different communities, they have tons of resources for families if they need them. Education in fitness and nutrition. So things like those coach development workshops, the healthy athlete screenings, the nutrition and fitness lessons that we learn in our programs. Those are all things that caregivers can learn about themselves. An introduction to the Special Olympics family. An athlete's role within Special Olympics BC means a few different things. Meeting new friends in a fun environment is really important, of course. Training in high quality programs for competition is definitely something that we strive for. And as I mentioned, some athletes only compete at the regional level, and then some strive for the world level, which is amazing. So they are high quality training. Things like the functional testing are ways in which that we're ensuring that athletes are improving and not just kind of staying stagnant and continually getting better in their sports and as people and becoming healthier. Traveling to competitions both regionally and provincially is required. So normally regionally, it's not far travel because it's within the region that you're competing in. Provincially, as we said, Kamloops is coming up in February. So all of our Lower Mainland athletes are going to need to travel to Kamloops, and everyone from the north is going to travel down from Kamloops. So traveling is required. And then at kind of the national and international level, that's part of the endorsement process, meaning that we ensure that athletes are endorsed or able to move forward with competing on those stages if they're comfortable traveling, or if they're able to do that with their coaches and their teammates and not with their parents with them. Getting in shape and improving their motor skills is part of kind of the athlete's role within Special Olympics BC. So you don't join Special Olympics BC without thinking that you're, not going to try to become fit and healthy. It's definitely that effort is required within Special Olympics. Increasing your confidence and self-esteem, as we mentioned, is part of the athlete's role and being a part of our organization. Maintaining personal health and nutrition, very important. Setting athletic and personal goals is something your coaches will often ask you to do. And learning about teamwork and sportsmanship is a really great part of being involved in sports in general. Some associated disabilities, as we kind of touched on before. So we find that the three most common diagnoses associated with intellectual disabilities are Down syndrome, fetal alcohol syndrome, or the autism spectrum disorder. And that doesn't mean that everyone with autism is eligible to be in Special Olympics. There's definitely some people with autism that aren't considered to have an intellectual disability. So if there's questions about that, we can forward them on to our eligibility requirements. Some other associated disabilities we found that our athletes come to us with are visual impairments, axial instability, schizophrenia, hearing impairments, physical adaptations such as cerebral palsy, and others, and then seizures as well. So those are all things that our volunteers are prepared to work with as athletes within Special Olympics BC, because that's why our organization exists. How can we adapt our athletes to have the best possible opportunities? It is important to remember that each athlete is different, and when dealing with them, you'll need to get to know their specific disability and any other associated disabilities that present themselves. So as we know, every disability is different. Every individual is different. So even if we have 5 individuals with Down syndrome, that doesn't mean that they're all going to act the same. We recognize that everybody's different and everyone comes with their different limitations and strengths and weaknesses. So that's something that we obviously respect and identify within our programs. How can somebody get involved? So you can volunteer, you can donate, or you can participate. So as we've said, if you have an intellectual disability, you can certainly participate. As we've also mentioned, we're always looking for volunteers and people to run these programs. Fortunately, a lot of the time when athletes participate, their family wants to get involved. So parents want to become coaches or volunteers, which is excellent. And then donating is also a big part of Special Olympics BC, because that's where our funds come from. That's how we pay for the programming. And that's how we pay for athletes to get to competition. So lots of options to coach in sport programs, join a local committee and become a position with them, help us start a new program or a local. As I said, Hope is starting to develop. Whistler and Squamish is there, but they don't have programs running. So if anyone knows anyone in those areas, then be in touch with us so that we can get our programming out there too. Run a fundraiser or donate, invite an athlete to tell their story, and become an athlete mentor is another option. So in those athlete leadership courses that I talked about, they require mentors or volunteers to help them with their program. So that's another way to get involved. If you're not sport inclined or you don't want to be on the local committee, there's opportunities there as well. And I will say that our volunteers aren't required to have sports background. If they just want to be involved in a sport that they've never done before, absolutely. If they're a head coach or an assistant coach, we do require them to have some knowledge in the sport, obviously, so that they can teach it and teach others how to teach it. But there are lots of people who just get involved based on the day of the week that the program's being offered and their availability. And then that's how they determine where they're going to get involved. So we'll likely never say no. We always want people to be involved in our organization and know more about it. So if there's any way that you can do any of these things, it's amazing. Questions, concerns, anything that you want to send my way, email's definitely the best. C. Rogers, that was my maiden name, at specialolympics.bc.ca, and it's easier to spell than Tambellini, so that's a plus. Send an email to me with any questions, any inquiries. If there's anything I said today that you want me to expand on, let me know. I do have a phone number there, 604-802-4226, and that's a cell number, so if it's easier to text or call that, that's great as well. But please feel free to look us up on our website, on social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. We're on TikTok now. So we're around and we're happy to answer any questions that anyone has. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay. It was really nice to know all the
Great.
things that you guys do.
Pardon?
No, it's really nice to know all the things that you guys do.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it's a great organization.
Yeah, really nice.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Are we good to go?
Yeah, we can just end it now because there's
Thank you so
nobody there
much.
to ask any questions.
Yeah, no, I don't know if there's anyone to ask any questions or not, but they have my contact info, so that's great.
Yeah, they have everything. So
Great.
hopefully somebody will contact you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, have a good